Am than jua tangham sound in the basement. The Grand Marlowe Theatre had stood like a faded crown in the heart of the city, its once glorious stage long silenced by time, dust, and the scars of war. Decades of decay clung to its marble halls and velvet-draped balconies. When the city finally approved funding for its restoration, the effort was met with celebration. But the engineers quickly discovered that the theater held more than old beams and crumbling plaster. Beneath the main stage, behind a false brick wall and several layers of rusted steel, they unearthed a sealed series of iron doors uncharted on any architectural plan. The doors bore no handles and had been welded shut with intent. Torch cutting them open revealed a chilling sight, a pristine pre-war recording studio, frozen in time. The room was immaculate, as if waiting. Microphones with polished brass necks. A grand piano, untouched by dust. Soundproofed walls lined with strange, archaic acoustic panels. But most chilling of all was the phonograph sitting at the center, an ornate beast of oak and metal. Its arm delicately poised over a blank vinyl record. When the theater's electricity was turned on for the first time in decades, lights in the studio flickered to life, and the phonograph began to play. No one had touched it, yet music drifted from the speaker, low, slow, haunting. The song was unlike anything anyone had heard before, layered harmonics, a voice that seemed neither male nor female, and lyrics in a language no one could place. It felt old, ancient, even, but not dated. There was no label on the record, no recording date, no artist name. Just the melody. And each time the power cycled, the song would begin again, starting with the same phrase, "Return what was never yours." The engineers brought in city historians, archivists, and musicologists. But the room wasn't listed in any known records. There were no photos, no permits, no construction logs. The city archives held blueprints of the theater from its original 1912 construction. But this section of the basement didn't exist on any of them. Rumors began to stir about secret performances during the war, about artists disappearing into the theater and never returning. One of the workers claimed he heard whispers echoing down the stairwell when alone. Another refused to re-enter the room altogether. By the end of the week, access to the recording studio was restricted. The city wanted silence, but curiosity had already begun to hum through the Conservatory of Music just blocks away. A small group of students caught wind of the discovery. To them, it wasn't just an artifact, it was a mystery, a song without a name begging to be heard again. And so, unknowingly, the melody found new ears, and the phonograph continued to spin. Even when unplugged. Theo Mora heard the rumors during a late-night studio session at the conservatory. A forgotten recording studio beneath the Grand Marlowe Theatre? A phonograph that plays by itself? It sounded like something out of a Gothic novella, but when he snuck out with his friend Mira to catch a glimpse through the security fence, what they saw inside was real dust swirling under cold white lights, and behind the stage, the basement, sealed off with industrial locks and ominous warnings. Within days, Theo had assembled a small team of equally curious friends. Mira, a linguistic prodigy who specialized in dead languages. Jules, a sound engineer with a fascination for analog tech. And Ren, a quiet composer with a haunted past and a love for things most people found too dissonant. Together, they convinced a sympathetic professor to help them gain limited access academic purposes, they said. They called themselves the Restoration Club. On their first visit to the studio, Jules's fingers trembled as he ran them over the phonograph's brass fittings. The place felt electric, not in a mechanical sense, but emotionally charged. Theo pressed record on a digital backup system as they played the mysterious track again. The melody drifted through the room, stranger than he remembered. Mira took notes furiously, noting phonetic anomalies, reversed consonants, and vowel structures that didn't match any known linguistic tree. "This isn't just a forgotten language," she whispered. "This might be a constructed one. Maybe for ritual?" Each day they returned, unlocking more from the fragile reels and lacquered discs. The sound was dense, layered, and unnatural in its precision. One track caused all their headphones to short out simultaneously. Another track, when slowed down, revealed what sounded like breathing heavy and close. Theo couldn't shake the feeling that something was listening back. And then there were the changes. Jules started losing sleep. Ren began composing at night, scrawling unfamiliar notes in patterns he didn't recognize by morning. Mira dreamed of corridors under the theater, filled with faceless singers humming in unison. Theo, meanwhile, discovered that when he isolated certain harmonics, the waveform visually resembled letters, sometimes spelling fragments of names. Sometimes his own. One night, as Theo stayed late to review the tracks alone, the phonograph activated by itself. The lights dimmed. The song played, slower than before. And this time, a new line emerged from the chorus, a line that wasn't there in any of their recordings. The final listener will become the echo. Theo didn't tell the others. Not yet. But as he copied the files to his laptop, the device crashed, rebooted, and displayed a single word in an old typeface. Vessel. Somewhere deeper in the basement, a second phonograph previously unnoticed spun once. Just once. No power, no needle. And above ground, in the music conservatory, a single tuning fork on a shelf vibrated in perfect silence. Jules was the first to vanish. He had stayed late one night, insistent on isolating what he called the low chorus buried beneath track 7. Theo and Mira warned him not to push the hardware they'd already seen what track 5 did to their headphones. But Jules was determined. By morning, his laptop was still running, his coffee cold, his backpack untouched. The track looped endlessly, replaying a version of the song no one had heard before, one with added harmonies. A darker timbre, and a strange distortion that seemed to form a second voice, whispering just below the threshold. Security footage showed Jules at his workstation. Then, abruptly, he froze. He turned to something off camera, nodded, and stood. The last frame captured was his silhouette walking toward the studio's far wall, where there was nothing but soundproof paneling. He never came out. Panic set in, but no one would believe the students. Police chalked it up to stress, a runaway case. But Theo and Mira knew. The phonograph had taken him. Ren, already the quietest of the group, became withdrawn. He stopped attending class and instead pored over Mira's translations and Theo's audio files. He noticed a pattern in the timestamps. Each disappearance, each surge of interference, matched historical records of missing persons tied to the Grand Marlowe, stretching back nearly a century. Every 15 years a group disappeared. Always musicians. Always in spring. Mira found something worse. Behind a cracked mirror in the basement's adjacent storage room, she discovered a scroll of handwritten sheet music, inked in what looked like dried blood. The melody matched track 8, but this version had notations added in a cipher. When decoded, it read, "Track 10 completes the host." Beneath the phrase, a symbol appeared, a closed eye with 6 rays branching out. The same symbol hidden in the waveform of track 4. Then came the dreams. Mira's sleep was plagued by endless corridors, candlelit halls, and choirs singing in reverse. Ren awoke one night screaming that he had seen Jules, his mouth stitched shut, humming the final refrain. Theo tried to rally them. "We're in too deep," he said. "We either finish this or let it consume us." Mira begged him to stop, to destroy the files, to leave the studio alone. But Theo couldn't. Something in the music had its hooks in him. Now he saw patterns, messages, a story that had to be told. Then Ren disappeared. No sound, no struggle. Just his violin bow snapped in half and resting atop the phonograph. The scroll Mira had found now bore Ren's name in the margins, scratched in the same red ink. And that night, the studio's second phonograph played again. This time, Mira heard it. It was Jules. Singing. The conservatory was quiet now. The Restoration Club had become an urban myth, and Theo and Mira were the last ones left. Ren's disappearance had silenced the campus whispers for a while, but the phonograph never stopped. Every time the basement lights flickered, Theo would return, driven by something deeper than obsession. He no longer spoke in full sentences, preferring to hum pieces of the recordings under his breath. his fingers moving in the air like he was conducting something only he could hear. Mira, terrified yet loyal, stayed close. She pored over everything: translations, waveforms, the blood-stained sheet music. It was no longer just about music. It was a ritual, an invitation. She discovered that the recordings mirrored a summoning rite from an obscure pre-Christian cult believed to have encoded spiritual possession through sound. The songs weren't just music, they were keys. Track 10 was the final key. Mira confronted Theo. If you play this last track, you're not finishing a restoration. You're opening something. But Theo didn't care. I have to hear it, he said. I need to know who's singing. Mira begged him, pleaded, threatened to call the police to destroy the drives, but he locked her out. She watched from the sound booth as he spliced the master reel, fingers trembling with anticipation. The studio filled with a pulsing low tone before the melody began. Track 10 was unlike the others, structured like a requiem, layered in impossible octaves. Theo smiled, tears running down his face. It's beautiful, he whispered. Then his body convulsed. Lights exploded. The phonograph levitated, spinning violently. The air thickened, and Mira could see the temperature plummet, her breath fogging the glass. Theo's form began to shimmer, his outline fraying like an old photograph left in the sun. The music crescendoed, and then she heard his voice, not his scream, not his pain, but his voice woven perfectly into the chorus. He was becoming part of the song. Mira pounded the glass, screamed, but it was too late. The reel burst into flame and disintegrated. The phonograph dropped, dead silent. Theo was gone. All that remained was the red-marked scroll, now bearing a final signature. His name etched in blood, beneath a line of text that hadn't been there before. Vessel complete. Mira fled. She took what little remained: backup files, handwritten notes, the damaged reel fragments, and ran. She hid them in a locker beneath the conservatory archives. The city sealed the Marlowe Theater again, citing structural instability. But the music had already escaped. That night, across town, someone uploaded a file to a forgotten corner of the internet. An MP3 named only Track 10 Final Master. And far below the city, both phonographs turned together. They never found Mira. After the night, Theo disappeared. She walked out of the Marlowe Theater and into silence. Her name faded from the conservatory rosters. Friends said she went abroad. A few believed she was committed. But no one really knew. What they did know, what they couldn't deny, was that something changed after that night. Something about sound. It began with rumors, a strange file spreading in hidden forums, the so-called Track 10 Final Master.m3. Those who downloaded it spoke of auditory hallucinations, lost time, dreams of velvet seats and red curtains, of faceless singers standing in the aisles of forgotten theaters. Then came the disappearances. A musician in Berlin, a podcaster in San Diego, a sound designer in Osaka, all linked only by a single anomaly: listening to a corrupted audio file days before vanishing. Files deleted, devices bricked, hard drives scorched. The authorities denied patterns. But the whispers said otherwise. Once you heard the final note, you were never alone again. Back in the city, the Grand Marlowe Theater was officially condemned. Urban explorers broke in, posting videos filled with strange audio distortions and shadowy figures just outside the frame. One group made it to the basement. The video ends abruptly after the sound of a phonograph needle drop. The final frame shows a new carving on the wall. You are the final note. The video goes viral. Within weeks, a cult following forms. Fans remix the audio, adding synths, distorting vocals, embedding the original waveform into experimental tracks. They don't realize they're only making it louder, wider, deeper. Soon, whispers of something called the Choir of the Hollow Note spread across encrypted servers. They believe the song is not a curse, but a threshold, a way to cross over. Their motto: be heard, be taken, be one. In the series' final moments, a group of first-year conservatory students break into the theater for a dare, laughing, filming, unaware. They reach the basement. It's quiet. Still, the phonograph rests in the center of the room like an altar. A girl dares her friend to play it. He does. The needle drops. The record turns. The music begins. The camera feed distorts. A high-frequency tone pierces the mic. Then, silence. The screen fades to black. Over the credits, a distorted version of the melody plays so low and layered. It feels like it's humming in the bones of the listener. Just before the final cut, one last whisper, barely audible. "Welcome back, Mira."